Any usage overage will be charged $15 for each additional 200 megabytes used. See store or website for details.
Need a reason to get your Chuck's Furniture Mart and mattress? How about 4? This Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, it's the great 4-day sale with up to 36 months, same as cash, and savings up to 50% off. Buy this sectional for
dramatically by illness and injury. When everyday activities become extraordinary tasks, there's Sundale, a haven of privacy and comfort during rehabilitation. I'm Donna Tennant, Director of Admissions, and if you or a loved one is in need of rehabilitative care, Sundale's experienced therapists offer hands that heal, a spirit that encourages, and medical expertise that works. Experts agree that early intervention is the key to any program. Sundale, in our care, yet close to home.
Shouldn't the senator from West Virginia actually live in West Virginia? Common sense, right? But multimillionaire John Racy doesn't think so. He thinks the rules just don't apply to him for some reason. Official government documents reveal Racy moved his family to Florida, just to help him avoid paying taxes. Now he wants to be West Virginia's senator. His wife isn't even registered to vote in West Virginia. Since she can't vote for him, why should we? This is the same John Racy who wants to abolish the minimum wage and signed a pledge to protect tax breaks for corporations that ship good middle-class jobs overseas. John Racy, out of touch, wrong for West Virginia. Communications Workers of America Working Voices, CWAUnion.org, and the United Mine Workers of America Power Pack, UMWA.org, are responsible for the contents of this advertisement.
Hi, I'm Kevin Scott Poe, and I'm running as a Republican for the West Virginia House of Delegates. I'm a conservative, and to me, that means 3 things: individual responsibility, lower taxes, and smaller government.
Kevin Scott Poe knows West Virginia can operate more efficiently.
As lawmakers, we can scrutinize budgets, make adjustments, and reallocate state money. That would ultimately let us lower taxes. I ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Kevin Scott Poe for House of Delegates. Paid for by the committee to elect Kevin Scott Poe. Pamela Poe, Treasurer.
You must care about your town to discuss the issues we all face. You're listening to Morgantown AM with Kay Murray and Jim Stallings on WAJR. Call now, 304-296-0041.
Welcome back to the Talk of the Town, Morgantown AM on WAJR, giving you the opportunity to get to know the candidates before you go vote. And today we have Kevin Patrick in the studio, and Steve Cook is on the air with us, and they are running for House of Delegates 44th District. And we have some phone calls. We're going to go to those calls now. And Jim in Morgantown. Hi, Jim. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Good morning, you guys. How you doing this morning?
Fine, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Hey, a real quick question and an observation. You hear this from everybody that we need to cut, we want to cut, we want to do this. And this is a question for, I tried to get in the other day when the young man was on Walters, I believe it was, and Mr. Burrell, and I couldn't get in. But the question for you two guys is this, and then I want to give you a suggestion. I'm a senior citizen, so it's not like I'm an anti-senior citizen. What specifically are you guys thinking about right now that needs cut, either totally, partially, it doesn't matter, in the state of West Virginia? And one of my suggestions is, again, being a senior citizen, we run these buses constantly up and down the roads. There's generally nobody on these buses. And since when, the thing that really irritates me is when did the government make it necessary, or we as West Virginia elderly people, deem it necessary for the government to come in and give us places to go, things to do, and ball games to play? I'm going to hang up, listen to your comments. Thank you.
All right, Steve, let's start with you on that. And you heard his question. What's your response?
Well, first of all, I'm sure that there are programs, budgets that can be cut within state government, because when I was labor commissioner, quite frankly, when I started, we had 90 employees. When I left 2 years later, we had 60 employees, and we're doing a better job than had been done with 90. Now, having said that, there is not enough fat in state government to cover all of the needs that may have. In terms of what needs to be cut, I don't have a specific answer for that. The empty buses that the gentleman referred to, I believe that's probably a county issue as opposed to a state legislative issue. And if there are empty buses that are being run, they probably need to re-examine that and make changes in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it.
All right, Kevin Patrick, same questions.
Sure. As I said earlier, I would reform but not totally cut the promised scholarship. There are various state departments of economic development which are effectively non-functioning. They're playing politics with those. We can cut those right away. We need to make a plan to move government public services over to community services. And those can be community-based organizations, private organizations, churches, charities, etc. There's not going to be one easy fix. It took us 70 years to get here. It's going to take us more than one legislative 60-day session to get us out.
I'm intrigued by move government organizations over to private organizations.
Yes, things that legislative duty, charity is not a duty of the legislature, at least at the federal level, possibly at the state level, but that becomes a philosophical argument. But we can move some of those functions over. Morgantown has 9 feeding programs for people who are underemployed or homeless, and that's great. And most of those are a combination public-private partnerships, and we should work to move those over to be entirely private.
What about senior citizens? Should they go more private as opposed to getting money from the state?
I would think so, but I think we need a societal change. We've become disenfranchised with our elderly, and we are losing information, wisdom, and knowledge. And so we need a societal change that respects the experience and the lives of those people.
304-296-0041 if you have a question for our guest. Let's go to John now. He's on a cell. Go ahead, John.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I heard someone mention about the lottery money being used to promote tourism. Well, you're also looking at the Department of Highways. I have common sense enough to realize you can't have great tourism unless you have highways. So if you want to cut something in the promotion of it until you get the highways back where they need to be. That's kind of like putting the cart, before the horse. It's common sense.
All right.
Do not mess with education. Don't cut anything out of that. My goodness, West Virginia needs all the help they can with education. Those promised scholarships are doing far more good than they are harm, believe me.
Well, let me add on to that in the form of a question. Some of the candidates this week have suggested perhaps taking some money from the lottery pie and moving it towards other places. Now it goes towards education and seniors. Kevin, what do you think about lottery revenues? And really, should we budget state money on the backs of gambling money?
Well, currently the lottery, the video poker machines, the revenue from that exceeds the severance tax for coal right now. That's become a significant portion of the state budget, and we are probably over-invested in that. I see it as a voluntary form of funding the government, and as many voluntary forms of funding as we can get, I think that we should support. I think that the state may want to diversify, let some of those state control over those machines lapse, and move that into a more private sector idea where it can be more efficient, though.
All right. Steve Cook, what about lottery funds and proceeds, where they're directed now? Would you favor any change or redistribution of that money?
Well, I certainly think it's something we could look at, Jim. That's up to the legislature to make those decisions. The lottery, and I understand there are a lot of people that are opposed to gambling, but the lottery, in effect, is a voluntary tax. For every dollar that people spend in the lottery, the state recoups 38%, 38 cents. So it's a very profitable operation, if you will. At the same time, with lottery legislation that's been passed in Pennsylvania, Ohio, etc., those proceeds are probably going to go down because we have other states that are competing directly. I don't like the fact that a substantial portion of our state budget is predicated on lottery income. Nevertheless, it's a fact of life.
Let's talk about some of the issues that came up in the past legislative session that are sure to be revisited in the next legislative session, not to mention all the interims and special sessions that occur throughout the year. But education in West Virginia, we have the topic of unfunded teachers' retirement. That's one issue. Charter schools is another issue. Let's talk about first charter schools. That came up in West Virginia last legislative session. Steve, are you in favor of those?
Well, generally speaking, charter schools have not been the panacea that some people have made them out to be. There may be aspects of that that the legislature could look at. I think that they took action a year or two ago that provides a great deal of flexibility for counties that wish to implement it. As a general rule, I would not favor charter schools. I certainly favor innovation. innovation zones, I guess is the term that they used. And some of the counties are participating in those programs.
All right, Kevin, what about charter schools?
I think that competition will create a better product, and education in this instance is a product. It gives us a benefit. Basically, it allows us an advantage in the future. So I think charter schools, vouchers, let's have people vote with their wallets, and let's make our education system better.
And Kay, maybe you have a better understanding of this unfunded teachers retirement fund, something that they're sure to address in the next legislative session. Is that about
Maybe
right?
Steve can explain it. And I know state employees that have not had increases, and of course increases in the PEIA and all the problems that surround that, Steve.
Well, the current legislature for a number of years has had to deal with sins of the past because, quite frankly, many years ago, legislators gave teachers, other public employees benefits that they frankly did not provide the revenue to cover, such as the teachers' retirement system. So those chickens have come home to roost. Due to a Supreme Court case some years ago, the legislature is currently, if I'm not mistaken, allocating about $250 million a year out of the general revenue fund toward that teacher's unfunded liability. It'll be a number of years before that has been addressed, but the legislature has been fiscally responsible in terms of trying to address those shortcomings.
Thank you, Steve Cook. And Kevin, any comments?
Sure. I'm going to borrow an idea from Chris Walters. His suggestion was that we encourage other divisions of the government to save, and then we take what the remainder of that budget and we split it as a combination of bonuses to employees, and then the rest is sent to pay down that OPEB debt. What we also need to do is when we make new contracts with new workers as they come on, we may need to say we can't offer you the same benefits we were able to offer 40 and 50 years ago. The situation is different.
Another hot topic sure to come up again in the legislature is Marcellus shale drilling, which is very important to Montague County, north central West Virginia, based on the amount of Marcellus shale we have in the ground, and largely unregulated right now. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin Patrick? Is there any need for the legislature to look at regulating how they get their water, what they do with their water, parts per million, these issues associated with extracting that gas with frack water?
Sure. In my opinion, there are some red herrings that are being tossed around for Marcellus shale drilling. Pennsylvania has over 1,000 wells. We're operating with less than 200. So we can look to see what they've done. One of the things that the previous session did is they wanted full disclosure on all of the chemicals involved. The process for horizontal drilling is called hydraulic fracturing, and they use a high-pressure solution to crack apart the shale so natural gas can be harvested. They wanted full disclosure on what exactly was going into the well. It's 99% water and sand with 1% proprietary chemicals. What's more important than what goes into the well is what comes out of the well. If we track what comes out of the well, we can treat it. There's only one company in Fairmont that can treat that frack water, and they can pull out those salts, and then we can use it. They actually reuse that water then. But it's sort of a red herring to focus on what goes in. It's more important what comes out.
Is there any magic number as far as parts per million? 500's been tossed about in the legislature as far as these total dissolved solids?
Sure. I'm not an expert in this, so I'll plead ignorance here. I think 500 is probably too low. That's what I understand from talking to other people, but I would seek other advice for this. I don't know enough.
Steve Cook, what do you think about the way that the gas is extracted through this method, and should the legislature step in and regulate it in any way?
Well, first of all, I think we need to capitalize upon the opportunity that the Marcellus Shale seems to offer to the state of West Virginia. It's a tremendous potential resource. At the same time, I think we absolutely need to regulate what is occurring so that we don't, as has happened with other industries in the past, that we don't ruin the environment, that we don't ruin people's drinking water and so forth. So, yeah, unquestionably, we need to have regulations. I'm not an expert in terms of exactly what those regulations should be. I know that the legislature has been trying to address it. The past session of the legislature, the House of Delegates passed a piece of legislation that would have provided some minimal standards. It's my understanding that bill died in the state Senate. I would hope that would be addressed again. I would hope that we can successfully come up with something that's a good balance between capitalizing upon the opportunity but controlling the environmental impact.
304-296-0041 is our number. And if you have a question for either of our candidates, Kevin Patrick or Steve Cook, call during the break and we'll get you on in the next segment. 304-296-0041.
Man, I love football season.
Yeah, tailgates are about the only fun anyone gets to have these days.
Yeah. See, Mom